Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Between Two Consultants. I am Nicholas Kelly.
And I'm Ethan Silvers.
And today we're talking about process improvement. Ethan, I know it's something close to your heart. What is process improvement?
Yeah, and before we talk about process improvement, this is a big mark for us. This is our bicentennial episode, number 200. So thank you all so much for joining. Process improvement is near and dear to my heart. It's what started me out in consulting, and I've stayed close to it since then and done dozens of process improvement projects. What I'd like to start with, process improvement at the heart is about process mapping. You have to know how to do process mapping. When you're doing process mapping and process improvement projects, you need to start with understanding what is the goal of what you're trying to accomplish. So it doesn't have to be eliminating waste. It doesn't have to be eliminating inefficiencies. It can be things like improving the customer experience. It could actually add time to the process. But a big piece of it is understanding what is the current state and then trying to figure out what the future state is, determining things like pain points, inefficiencies, waste, different types of improvements, and then getting people in a room and figuring out what's the current state and how to move to the future state.
Yeah, that's the easy part, right, Ethan? Just get the people together and get aligned.
You know, it's an interesting point you bring up, Mr. Kelly. It sounds like it should be, but sometimes there is definitely a herding cats aspect to it.
Absolutely. Well, to do that and to go through the process mapping and process improvement in general, are there any tools that are out there, anything you particularly recommend?
Yeah, there's several tools, and I'm not married to any of them. The two that I hear most common are Microsoft Visio, easy enough to get, and then there's Lucid Charts, which I've seen a number of clients use, and then there's one that I've used that I quite like, and that's Signavio. I don't think it's quite as popular, but I think it does some interesting things.
All right, yeah, I'm sure, I certainly know Visio. I don't think I've stumbled across the other ones, but yeah, good to know.
Yeah, and honestly, doesn't matter so much. Some people might say you got to go with this or you got to go with that. I say don't get hung up on that. Just yeah. Start the process improvement. I mean, this is going to be hard to believe, Nick. I've been doing this for a while. You look at me and you probably think, oh, I've been in the business for only 2 or 3 years, but
it's college. Yeah.
Yeah, straight out of college. Yeah, but I've been doing it for a little while. Choose whichever one is available and get started.
Yeah, you know, on this channel, we always talk about not having too much emphasis on tech. So, you know, with that in mind, what are the different theories, different approaches, methodologies that are out there?
Yeah, there's several, and they sort of wane and come back into popularity. There's Lean, which is a way to reduce waste. There's Six Sigma, which is about reduction in errors and reducing process variation. I still find that one to be quite popular and quite useful. Then there's been a decision, let's combine those. So there's Lean Six Sigma, which is combining those and make it more around business processes. There's TQM, Total Quality Management, and that's continually detecting and eliminating production errors. That was quite popular in the 80s. There's Kaizen, which I quite like. Kaizen, and that's because it's including all workers. It's really focused intentionally or not intentionally on change management because it's going from the bottom all the way up. And so you're getting everybody into a room and really talking about things. There's theories of constraints, and that's that there's always a constraint and how are we going to reduce that? And then there's one that's interesting, it's Agile. So it's the software developed methodology, but it works really well for processes. I sort of like the concept because it's, hey, let's do sprints, let's get things fixed in a really short amount of time. And then having things fixed really makes it build on one another. And so you get this cumulative snowball effect.
And it's got the added benefit that it's high fashion these days, right?
Yes, it's much easier to sell within an organization of, hey, here's what we're going to be doing. The way we're going to be approaching it's agile. It's very iterative. We'll get things done quickly. Like you're right. It's much easier to sell.
Well, talking about application and how you do it, how do you do it?
Yeah, so I'll talk about it briefly, but as my 7th grade teacher told me, What's important is don't tell, but show. So we'll do a quick little workshop between you and me. And I still, it's the first time I've actually used that saying from my 7th grade teacher. So it's the first time since I graduated 6 years ago. So let's see how good we can be in quickly doing a process mapping piece of work. So Nick, let's just use a simple process. What do you think could be a good one to use?
I am a fan of coffee, and I have quite a lot of coffee every day. So yeah,
that's great. I don't drink coffee because my body's a temple, but you can do whatever you want to your body.
That's right. Yeah, that was such a trap. I walked into it.
No,
it's non-caffeinated coffee, and it is made from the purest waters on earth.
Oh, nice. Yeah. For me, I don't do the coffee. I just drink the creamer. So what we start off with are these things called swim lanes. And swim lanes are the people or the lines of business that actually do the work. So each of these is a swim lane. It'll become clearer and clearer. So what is the first step in getting the coffee? Who actually does it? Who are the members of your household who are involved?
So I suppose it starts at the shopping, because we don't get involved anytime before that process, right? So it's shopping. My wife or I would, more likely my wife would buy the coffee.
Okay, so this first swim lane is, who's the one who buys the coffee?
My long-suffering wife, Maria.
Let's call her Maria.
Yeah.
Rather than your long.
As well. Yeah, it's too long. That's the only complaint about it.
And the first thing that you do is you buy coffee.
Right.
And when you start a process for the process mapping, that's called a terminator. And the terminator. That's what that symbol is called right there. And we will put in there buy coffee. And then the next swim lane, I'm guessing, is you. Okay. So now I'm going to write Nick in the next swim lane. And we're going to move that here. And now we can see that Maria and Nick are the two people who are doing this. And I like that you starred yourself. I think that makes a lot of sense.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, to show the hierarchy in the family.
Yeah, let's say yes.
Are you going to get in trouble for that later?
Yeah.
And then we draw an arrow, which is the next big thing. And so what happens, Nick, after Maria buys coffee? What do you do with it?
Put it in the pantry.
And then after you put it in the pantry, what's the next thing?
I'm going to come down one morning and make coffee.
And then we'll draw another arrow. After you make coffee, I'm guessing, I'm not going to steal your thunder here.
One of the kids will knock it out of my hand, and I'll scream. And I'll drink what little bit is left at the bottom.
Okay. Be better if it all fit nicely, but we're doing this really quickly. And so this is a really simple one. And so what we would do for a process improvement one is like, okay, so where is our inefficiency? And so the answer would be, well, it being knocked out of your hand is pretty inefficient. So we'd circle that one and say, let's figure out, Nick, what can we do about reducing the amount of times that can be knocked out of your hand? And so then we'd brainstorm. Okay, so maybe what we want to do is something that's pretty cool, like get a coffee cup that is made out of Velcro, and you put on a glove that helps it attach to your hand so the kids can't knock it out of your hand.
Love it.
Yeah.
I could get one of those, like the marathon runners have, like those sort of backpacks where they drink out of a straw. I could have like the coffee feed into that.
Yeah.
Then greatly reduces the risk of that happening.
Right. Or the other thing is, you could lock your kids in the bathroom while you're drinking your coffee.
Yeah, it all makes sense.
Yeah. And then we'd do this again, but we do it as a future state. And then we would implement the future state with the solution that we came up with. And so this is a very simple one. It becomes much more complex. And so, I don't want to slow us down by showing you some of the more complex ones. But there's, dozens of swim lanes and, like hundreds of boxes to do the future state and the current state. And that's sort of like the very basics of process improvement.
Ethan, when I think I've seen something similar to this, and I'm not the process improvement person, but would it be fair to say I might have come across this in like a customer care, customer service centers, those kind of areas?
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a great place to use it. And they should have the current state mapped out regardless, if nothing else for training, but also just to understand what the process looks like. And then it's a great way to also understand where are the pain points, where are customers not being served in the correct way. Is the optimal thing to do in customer service? Is it to give the customer white glove treatment? Right. If so, the future state will look different. Or is it, hey, we want to reduce the amount of whatever it is, and let's create a future state that targets that.
So we can help them reduce coffee spills, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something on the top of all of our minds with, kids knocking the coffee out of our hands. I know I don't drink coffee, just creamer, as we discussed, and so my kids are knocking the creamer out of my hand all the time.
And your kids being the kids with the way they are, they probably still manage to knock coffee out of your hand, even though you don't have any.
It's a really good point. So I fixed it by keeping the kids locked in the bathroom for most of the morning.
Yeah, and hashtag we don't endorse locking kids in rooms. So just so we're clear, that'll satisfy legal.
No, that's nice of you to bring up. I don't subscribe to your theory, but let's keep going.
So, Ethan, we're coming near the end of the session. What are the trends that are going on in process improvement? You mentioned agile. That's fairly high fashion. What are the other trends?
Yeah, so it's good that there are some other high fashion things within process improvement. One of them is people love talking about AI. And so with process mining and RPA and BPM, all of those are tending towards that. And it's sort of using artificial intelligence to figure out what are the processes and what are ways to improve that. Process mining is a really interesting one that's picking up steam, and process mining is using the technology to understand and map for you what is the current state. Downsides to that is it really can only do it if that process exists within a system or technology. RPA it's been picking up steam for the last many years, and it's continuing to pick up steam. We're seeing a lot of interest in that. And then there's BPM, business process management, and that's basically its own language. And the language helps you automate. So there's people who subscribe to this, and they're very adamant about it. There's a right way to do BPM, and it's a language, and that is basically doing the coding for you to improve processes. Just one or two more is the people aspect of process improvement. People are really starting to understand that. And then the idea that you need support from leadership. And I think one of the last things that I'll bring up is this is a great way to include change management to get everybody on board, because you're bringing everybody into a room, getting them to talk about, hey, do we agree this is what the process is and how we're going to improve it?
Love it. When you mentioned BPM, it brought me back to my trance rave days, beats per minute, and it was all about how many foot moves you can knock out.
Yeah. Well, what were you at? What was your top?
I was up there like Michael Flatley, and like well over 100 taps. Taps per second.
Mine is 700. So,
yeah. We can talk about that.
Maybe our next Between Two Consultants could be on that.
Game. Let's make it a dance off, a tap off.
Yeah, maybe we'll bring our producer Courtney in, and she'll really steal the thunder.
What do you think, Courtney? Can you do referee for that?
Chime in here? Yes, I can.
All right.
See you next week, guys.
Great. Thank you. So another episode. our 200th bicentennial between two consultants. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Looking forward to seeing you next time.
Bye, everybody.